So I'm sure that a couple of you know this already, but a few days ago I uploaded my Premier League predictions video. In that video, I stated that I believe that Arsenal will win the league. And quite frankly, they will. However, I've got quite a lot of stick over the past few days from people who believe that it's just another ridiculous Rory prediction. Some hateful abuse, because some people believe that it's some wild prediction when the reality is, it is fact. So what I thought I need to do in this video is explain my rationale, weirdly justify my own conclusions, but also give you the true reasoning as to why I believe Arsenal will win the league. There are a multitude of reasons, but there is also one reason, one crucial reason, one exceptional reason as to why Arsenal will win the league next season. But before we get into it, and before I reveal the reasons, it is very important to me that the record states that I am desperate to be wrong. In fact, not just wrong, spectacularly wrong. As wrong as you can ever be. I want Arsenal to finish 10th and win nothing. And here is why. All of my formative years were ruined by Arsenal. I am old enough to remember going to Highbury with my dad and having to be serenaded by their fans singing about Chelsea winning the league in black and white, endlessly droning on. From Stamford Bridge to anywhere, you still ain't won no silverware. Carnu from the corner flag, I was there. Silvino, I was there. Winterburn, I was there. Through Cudicini's legs for Thierry Henry to tap it in, I was there. Not quite relevant to this video, but this is so far painful, allow me to say this. Doesn't really bring anything to the video, but I have to say it. I was also there when Wayne Bridges' goal sent us out of control. Needed that light relief. Right, back on track. Very few things in football give me greater pleasure than Arsenal not winning the league for the past 2 decades. Now, the reasoning for that is because of all of the above that we just discussed, but also primarily because of what it means to me directly. I grew up in an estate on Shoot Up Hill in the 90s when Arsenal were winning doubles. Kilburn is an Arsenal area. 80% of my friends were Arsenal fans. 80% of the estate were Arsenal fans. Can you imagine what life was like for a Chelsea fan who had won no silverware in my entire lifetime watching Arsenal win doubles? In my flats, we had a little youth club in the bottom of the block I lived in. I remember watching the FA Cup final when Nicolas Anelka scored and the place erupted. I precisely remember the pain that I felt in that exact moment. Life as a Chelsea fan then was grim. And it was primarily grim because of Arsenal Football Club. So that is why I desperately hope to be wrong about them winning the league. But I'm not. Right, before we go any further, can I just ask you to do me a massive favour? Please click that subscriber button. If you are watching this video and you haven't clicked subscribe, please click it right now. It hugely helps me out and it would be my honour to welcome you into this community. Thank you. Quite simply, Arsenal are going to be too good this season. Quite simply, Mikel Arteta is going to be too good this season. And quite simply, there isn't going to be anyone who will be able to stop them. They're going to be more experienced than ever before, more ready than ever before, more determined than ever before. They're going to harness the disappointment of not winning the league last season, not winning the league the year before, and use it as some sort of galvanising force to launch a serious bid for the league this year. Martin Odegaard has spoken about this. Last year, they were borderline perfect. They broke all sorts of records. They were Arsenal's most successful team ever, as Odegaard put it. Last season was about the records. This season is about the silverware. And when you look at what Arsenal have done this summer, it's very difficult to disagree. I also think that people forget quite how good Arsenal were last season. They were spectacularly good, dazzling at times. But because history is written by the winners, we forget quite how brilliant they were. They lost the league by 2 points. They accrued 89 points. And the most crucial statistic? They had the best defence in the league last season. They only conceded 29 goals in the entirety of last season. If that isn't the foundation for a title win, I don't know what is. And now think about what they've done in the transfer market. They had the best defence in the league last season, and they have gone and they have replenished their defence. It's excellent recruitment and intelligence from both Mikel Arteta and Edu. Last season, their defence was great, but they realised that they didn't have enough cover. And basically one injury could scupper their title aspirations this season. They were too reliant on 3 players. Saliba, Gabriel, Ben White. An injury to either of those 3 and it could have been curtains for Arsenal. But Arteta realised that and he equalised the problem immediately. The reason Arsenal could go so close last season was because those 3 never got injured. But there's jeopardy in that. That cannot be guaranteed. So you do need cover. And Arsenal have gone out and they have solved that problem. It's essential now that we acknowledge quite how important those 3 players are to Arsenal. Last season, William Saliba played every single minute of Arsenal's entire Premier League season. Gabriel started 34 of 38 games, and Ben White started 35. And that is why Arsenal's recruitment drive centred around another defender. You know, when everybody was speculating, everybody was suggesting, Arsenal need a striker. Who do Arsenal sign? Is it Ivan Toney? Can they go out and get Alexander Isak? They need more forward options. They need that iconic number 9. It wasn't true. There are enough goals in that Arsenal team. The defence, for that high standard, was actually threadbare. And that is why Calafiori was a perfect signing. It actually reminds me of when Chelsea were good. You've got to have a good memory, but when Chelsea were good and we won the league, we won back-to-back leagues with Jose Mourinho, 05-06. In the summer of 05, when we'd already won the league, we already had the best midfield in the league, what did we do? We didn't rest on it at all. We went out and we elevated that midfield. We went out and we spent £25 million on Mikel Essien. Now, we didn't need Mikel Essien. We had an amazing midfielder in Thiago Mendes, but we strengthened a position of strength. And that is what you do when you're at the top or you're desperate to get to the top. With Calafiori bought in and Jurrien Timber now an option, Arsenal have genuine depth at the back. And listen, we could speak for hours, couldn't we? Admiring the brilliance of Bukayo Saka, acknowledging quite what a centre-forward Gabriel Jesus is. I am such a huge fan of Leandro Trossard. Trossard is everything I want Mykhailo Mudryk to be. Martinelli, out of form but an excellent player. Martin Odegaard, one of the most skillful craftsmen in the league. So that effervescent front 4, front 5 that Mikel Arteta likes to employ is sensational. But the reason, the difference, and why I believe Arsenal are going to win the league, it's the back line. It's a defence that has everything. Strength, power, aggression, versatility, technical ability, and perhaps most crucially, the ability to be horrible. Big geezers bullying their way to victory. White, Tomiyasu, Timber and Calafiori all have the ability to play both at fullback and at centre-half. And in Zinchenko, Arsenal have one of the best passing left-backs in the league. It's an amazing defensive rebuild that has taken ages. Since 2019, Arsenal have been working on this. 11 defenders signed by Arsenal since 2019 at a cost of over £250 million. But it's finally ready. The recipe is complete. And Mikel Arteta deserves an awful lot of credit here. Have a listen. In fact, have a guess. Do you know who would have been Mikel Arteta's first defensive 4? The first back line ever employed by Mikel Arteta. Think about how average this is compared to what they have now. And for the rebuild, Arteta deserves an awful lot of credit. I've given you a moment to guess. I'm going to now reveal the answer. It's Maitland-Niles, David Luiz, Socrates and Bukayo Saka across the back line. So the jewel in my crown as to the reason why I believe Arsenal are going to win the league is because of their outrageously good defence. But it isn't the only reason. Far from it, in fact. I think a good way to look at this, if you don't believe that Arsenal are going to win the league, have a think about who can stop them. In my opinion, there is literally one team potentially better than Arsenal this year. That team is Manchester City. And for me, they're just not that side this year. I think in the transfer market, Manchester City have been making some drastic mistakes, and that could haunt them. Signing Calvin Phillips, signing Kovacic, signing Nunez, allowing Cole Palmer to leave, allowing Julian Alvarez to leave. The overall ability of the side, particularly when you compare this side to the side that won the treble, is so much weaker. How can you lose Gundogan and replace him with Kovacic? It doesn't make sense. And ultimately, those errors are going to prove unsustainable. Julian Alvarez is also a huge one. And from what we're hearing at the moment, it doesn't look like Manchester City are going to make any big strides to sign a replacement. If they do sign someone, it feels like it's going to be more of a Choupo-Moting, Hosselu type signing than any sort of marquee name. I'm afraid that you cannot diminish the talent in your squad by losing somebody of the quality of Julian Alvarez and not replace him. Alvarez was integral to Man City winning the league last year, and he is now not an option. Only 4 players in the Man City squad played more minutes than Julian Alvarez in the Premier League last season. He had the ability to cover both Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland, and they've let him go. Man City still haven't signed a Rodri backup either. They are so heavily reliant on him. You know, they have people that can do a job there. Kovacic, I'm sure, can do a job there. John Stones is undoubtedly a viable option. And we've heard Guardiola talking about that Nick O'Reilly as if he could be a potential replacement in the future. But for now, for this season, Man City are a Rodri injury away from a huge problem. And Guardiola is aware of this. Guardiola has been saying that he plays too much football. And City actually gave Rodri more time off than anyone else in the squad, even more than the England lads. And they obviously finished their international commitments on the same day. I also wonder how long Man City can focus on the brilliance of Kyle Walker. An outrageously good player, a wonderful talent, one of the best signings in the Premier League. But he didn't have a particularly good season and he was woeful for England. Sometimes with fullbacks, it just ends. It's over. And I wonder if that moment is approaching for Kyle Walker. There's no doubt that in those one-on-one situations, Kyle Walker is excellent. But realistically, how many times do Man City need that particular skill? And if he's not available, who plays there? Rico Lewis? I think Rico Lewis is a better midfielder. I think Rico Lewis himself thinks that he is a better midfielder. So ultimately, there is a vulnerability in this Man City squad. There is a chink in the armour. And I think that Mikel Arteta is there waiting to expose it for all that it's worth. So when you weigh it up, I just don't see how you don't conclude that Arsenal are going to win the league. It's clearly theirs and theirs for the taking. City are weaker. Arsenal are stronger. Arsenal will use the disappointment of last year to harness something special this season. They have the determination in the squad, the belief within the club, the manager who knows what it takes, enough world-class players to get over the line, and a track record and a trajectory of moving on up. Combine Arsenal's dazzling attack with Arsenal's miserly defence, and then factor in everything that we've just said about Manchester City. How don't you conclude that it's Arsenal's? And even if you don't conclude that, the grief I got. Unbelievable. Anyway, they are my thoughts on the matter. I would love to hear your comments in the comment section below. As I stated at the beginning of this video, I don't want to be correct. So if you have any genuine rationale, any true reasoning as to why it doesn't go Arteta's way, any logical or even philosophical reason as to how Pep Guardiola somehow wins the league against this dazzling Arsenal team, I want to hear it. I want you to be right, so please let me know in the comments below. But if we're honest, we're all going to have to get to grips with the world that Arsenal have ended their 20-year wait for the league. Agony.